Hello and welcome to the show. This is Everything Under the Sun. My name is Ty. I realized recently that there are so many people that I'm friends with and that I'm kind of, you know, associated with in various parts of my life that have been dealing with a lot, in this past year, not, just in this year alone, but have been dealing a lot recently. And maybe there's a transformation that's happening, which I'm very, very happy for, as far as just like a new light that's kind of being brought into the lives of these, friends of mine, these people that I really care about. And, I'm noticing within myself as well, just like, just an energetic force that's starting to drive me towards like different things. But, I started realizing that a lot of my friends started coming to me or, having these conversations with me about really struggling in these past few months, this last year, however long it's been. And, I kind of think back to my story about, like the struggle that I was dealing with, like in that time period that I was kind of really not okay. And I dealt with that all by myself, like within my own mind, within my own self, within my own person. That's how I decided to deal with it. And, of course, opening up and connecting with others could have been something that helped me throughout that time, but it wasn't something I was okay with feeling. And maybe that's again like the social aspect around mental health or whatever that may be. But I'm just realizing that, like there are a lot of other people that deal with that in the same way. And it's so unfortunate that people have to struggle alone with these things that are kind of inevitable in life. These periods of sadness, these periods of grief. And I think it's important for us to really change that culture around it. So I'm going to start off the show, and I really mean this when I say I really hope all of you are doing well, and check in with yourself. Are you doing okay? How are you doing? And if you're not doing okay, reach out to someone that you feel close to, that you can feel can hold space with you and be there for you. And it can just start off with a conversation, just a normal conversation. But if you have that intention of wanting to open up and express yourself to this person and maybe raise this relationship to a different dynamic, change this relationship to a different dynamic as we think about this topic of change today, all things are possible in that respect. And, if you don't have that person that you can confide in your life, you can change that and you can create that within your life if you want to do that. And if you are struggling with something, again, feel comfortable or try to gain some comfort and being able to go to someone just to even just have a conversation again, to just initiate that contact, initiate that connection. And that's kind of all I had to say in that regard, because it kind of just, I don't know, it makes me feel really sad to think that there are so many people walking about and trying to be okay just to kind of move through society when that's also influencing how we move through society, like the things that we're feeling. So it's important to kind of recognize that and to recognize that within yourself and feel comfortable, going out and maybe asking for help if you need that help. So that's kind of what I'm going to start with the beginning of this, and I'm going to go into this. I feel like I'm just mixing up my words. I'm going to get into the topic today because I feel like this is a really important topic, and it's something that I think that, we all kind of have to deal with at some point in our life. I feel like I've been fumbling my words. It's just, I don't know, it makes me laugh sometimes. But anyway, this is the box that I'm shaking, as you can probably hear. And again, thank you for sending all those topics in. You can send those to everything.sunpodcast@gmail.com, or you can send them to any of the social media pages that are associated with the podcast or whatever that may be. If you know me, send a text message. Doesn't really matter. Anyway, that works, is good enough for me. But the topic for next week is going to be money. And this is something that I think is like really interesting. I was just watching a show. Oh, I just started watching that show Lucifer. I'm not sure if anyone else has watched that show, but I mean, it's okay. It's something to watch. I kind of watch it, and I've been putting it off for so long because I love horror movies and things like that, and I I've been putting it off because I've seen the trailers for Lucifer, and it was kind of it seemed kind of just cheesy in some ways. And as I'm watching it, I kind of realized I'm like, yeah, you know, I wish it had like more of a kind of a darker aspect to it, but I think that there's a, I don't know, it's definitely developing. But anyway, there's a point in the recent episode that I actually watched that the guy was speaking about, that he only worships one God, and that's money. And it was something that just kind of it made me kind of just think how many people actually live by that mentality, how many people really strive just for money in itself, and what is money, like we kind of create this value for it. So I don't know. I think this will be an interesting topic. Not really sure where I'm going to go with it, but in the parentheses here, I put exchange of goods and services and kind of consumerism. So I do remember being given this topic, so I'm going to go back to that email and check out maybe some more details of maybe what this person was really looking for, aiming for with that topic. But again, send those in, everything.somepodcast@gmail.com. And today's topic is going to be on change, which you may already recognize that, but change is something I think it's something I speak about a lot in this podcast because it's something that's part of us. It's something that is truly inevitable. It's one of the most certain things that we can determine in this life, and there are very, very few things. Although we say that there are many things that we can, say are certain in life, I think a lot of those aren't really certainties, but change is 100% certain in life, and it's something that as we kind of realize this, we can use it to our benefit. We can kind of stop being a pawn, so to speak, and moving about with the changes and more or less take control. And taking control doesn't necessarily mean taking control of the kind of random changes, the things that life brings us, these kind of huge, unavoidable type of changes that kind of happen in our lives, whether it's, loss or the birth of, someone new into your family, whatever that may be, change happens and we can be part of it or we can resist it. And I think that resistance kind of causes a lot more distress than it does to just kind of like move with the change that's happening. So, I mean, obviously the first part of this, idea of change is accepting the fact that change is happening. I think that something that is relevant or something that is apparent within the way that we speak and interact with one another is that we recognize that change is a thing. We recognize that change is constant because we see the seasons change and we don't freak out at the fact that the seasons are changing. We'll say things like things will get better or, that's something that is in the past or whatever that may be. But we say certain sayings that kind of recognize also that things are different than they were before or things are going to change than the way that they are now. And we say these things. It's within how we speak. Yet when change actually occurs, it's like we try to resist against it. And it's so strange that we do this because it's kind of like accepting something and then trying to reject it all at the same time. It's like waking up in the morning and knowing that gravity exists. But then you're like, you know what? No. You're thinking about gravity in the morning. You're like, you know what? No. And you want to roll out of bed and just like start levitating or something. You will be very upset when you roll out of bed and you fall on the floor. And you're going to get pissed off at the fact that, that didn't work because you just decided to reject accepting the fact that this is something that's just real and part of life. And that's something that we do with change. It's like, again, we have these verbs. We move about in life recognizing that change exists and change is constant. Yet when change happens in certain degrees in our lives, we are so hurt against it. We're so adamant against pushing against it because it's something that we don't want. Yet in every other part of our lives, we're accepting it. And that's something that it's like that's where we kind of fall short within ourselves and lose control of the fact that, change is happening. We have to recognize that change is constant within all aspects of our life. And whether or not we have control over that change, again, there are uncontrollable aspects of change that, we can't really do anything with to prepare ourselves for. But we can be in that situation and start moving in that situation, acknowledging that change is part of life. And of course, change, it can bring bad things. Change doesn't necessarily always mean that something good is going to happen from the thing that changed. Like you can change your job and it can be a really bad job. It can be a terrible work environment, terrible pay, and really not worth the time of, you trading from your last job. But also, you would never know that experience of, like what that was if you never took that job opportunity. And that's something that's really unique about change is that change allows us to get into a different place in our lives. It gets us to a place where we're maybe not very comfortable in our lives, but that discomfort brings us more knowledge, brings us more experience, brings us more resilience to move on and to move to different places in our lives. And again, as we accept these changes in our lives, it doesn't mean that we have to just kind of like stay with them and just kind of like roll over and let them, bring us down. But it's just accepting the situation and also accepting your feelings around it, because it's okay to be not okay with the changes that are happening. If you get a job and it's shitty, then, it's okay to, okay, well, I don't feel okay in this position. I don't like this position. Those feelings are telling you that you don't want to be there. Acknowledge and accept those feelings, because those feelings are going to help to drive you into your next situation, into the next place that you want to go. And the recognition that change is part of life is going to let you realize that this is only temporary. This job, this dislike that I have for the situation, it's going to drive me to a different place in life. It's going to drive me to a different occupation, and that is going to be the change that I want to see for myself. But as long as we kind of feel stagnant in our lives, as long as we feel as though this change is going to be forever, then we're going to stay stuck in that situation so much longer. We're going to lose motivation within ourselves, and we're going to lose kind of the drive within ourselves that keeps us moving. And change is part of that drive, As we change things in our lives, we start recognizing new strengths that we have, new things that we want for ourselves. Again, if you didn't take that job, then you wouldn't know that you didn't want it. Maybe you're staying in your current job and you didn't take that job offer. And now you're wondering within yourself, oh man, what would that job be like? What opportunities could that have brought me? Not realizing that if you took that job, it'd be really terrible. But in that moment, in your current job, if you didn't take that opportunity, if you didn't make that change, then you would constantly just be wondering or what that may be. Or you'd be settling in the position that caused you to want to even explore other job opportunities in the first place. Change is something that it's part of us. And as we accept it, we can take control over it. We can take control over of how it influences us. Of course, again, there are those unavoidable things, those things like loss, or, like we may suddenly lose a job. We may suddenly lose a loved one. And these are losses that we can't necessarily avoid, but these are things that we can also start realizing are going to happen. This job, whatever job you have, isn't going to be constant. There's going to be a point, whether you stay there your entire career, you're going to retire at some point. Whether you find dislike in it and you transfer jobs, whether the company comes to a crashing fall and like you lose a job because of that, whether a worldwide pandemic happens and you lose your job because of that, whatever it may be, it's temporary. Change is happening. And those changes will shift you into the new domains and new places in life that you want to go. Although like so many people have lost so many things during this pandemic, this change is something that's so radical. And there are so many people speaking about just what the world's going to look like after this pandemic. It's not going to go back to the way that it was because things have changed. And that's something that we're going to have to also accept. As we deal with these uncontrollable changes in our lives, it's something that, again, like they just kind of fall on us. But as we accept the fact that change is something that is part of life, again, we take control over it. So in these moments where maybe you have a loss of a loved one, or you lose a job, or whatever it may be, check in with yourself. Check in to see how you are feeling. How is that change treating you? How is that change impacting your thoughts? How's it impacting your feelings? How's it impacting the direction in life that you're going? Recognize that. Accept all of those things that is coming along with those changes, because that's resistance in itself. If you push those aside, if you push those feelings aside, that is resisting change, because your feelings are changing. Your internal world is changing along with, whatever things are changing in your external world. So check in with yourself. Find out how are you doing? How are you dealing with this situation? And how do you want to feel? How do you want to take these things that you're feeling and integrate that into where you want to go? Because that's again accepting change. It's like, okay, yes, I'm feeling these things, and feel them. As long as you need to sit with those feelings, but recognize that change is happening, and take those things that you're feeling, take those things that you're thinking, take the experiences that you're having that are changing around you, and shape it into something that you're now taking control over, because you're recognizing that this change is something that's existent. This change is something that will always be. So now what do I want to do with it? Where do I want to change my life? Where do I want to make this change in whatever situation is right now? And again, it doesn't have to be something that you have to immediately snap out of. Like, we have losses and we feel pain, and those changes that are happening in our internal world, they need time. Sometimes it needs some time to really just organize what that change is happening. And that's where that checking in comes in. It's you checking in and seeing, okay, what's happening? How do I organize everything that's happening into something that makes me kind of realize the next step that I want to take? So sit with yourself and be with yourself, but it's important to check in with yourself. And I've spoken about this many times. The toolboxes, the different things that we gain, the traits that we realize that we have within ourselves to help us get to an okay point. Like I said, with me, music is something that I love to do. I love to go in nature. I love to go on hikes. I love to do these different things. And I realize that when I'm not feeling okay, when so much change is happening, that's what I go to. When there's a lot of stuff when there's a lot of stuff happening and it's just chaotic, I like to go to the beach because I realize that, like the ocean is very calming, like I can kind of zone out and realize that, you know, it's a calming sense. I start feeling calm. Or I can listen to music if it's not necessarily a beach day or the opportunity to go to the beach. I listen to music. And there are other things that I do. Maybe I sit and I breathe for a minute. Maybe I look around and just like notice the breeze, whatever that may be. These are different tools that I notice within myself when I'm stressed out or realizing that there's so much happening around me that I just need to calm down. These are all tools that we have within us. I mean, whatever that tool may be for you, maybe it's art, maybe it's, exercise, maybe it's, binge watching TV, like whatever that may be, like recognize, like the different things that make you feel okay. And when these changes are happening, these unavoidable changes, these changes that kind of shake your world up, use those tools. When you're checking in with yourself and you're realizing, okay, I'm not okay right now, use those tools that you've gathered in your toolbox, recognize that you have them, utilize them. But again, we have to reinforce, we have to look in that toolbox to realize what we have. Have you ever had something in your garage and you're like, or, just like under your bed or wherever it may be, and it's just been out of sight, out of mind for the longest time? You're like, yeah, I don't even know what color that is. I don't know how many of those there are. I might have that in there. It could be. I'm not really sure. It's been years since I looked at it. We have to keep checking in with ourselves, checking in at these tools that we have, these things that we have that are going to help us in these situations. Recognize that we have them and remind ourselves that we have them so that when that time comes, when that change happens and it's shaking up our world, we can go back to it. We can go to it readily. We can be there and know that, okay, I have the safety net. I can go towards those feelings. I can be in this state of not being okay, knowing that I have the safety net of these tools within me. And those tools can be support systems. They can be family members that you have. They can be friends that you confide in. Whatever that may be, recognize the tools that you have within yourself in this time of transition, in this time of change. Because again, change is constant. So utilize these tools. These are going to be tools that you're going to recognize that you're using more often than not. As we strive for different things in life, as we move to different walks in lives, I mean, they're going to bring different changes and different opportunities, different feelings. So these tools are going to be utilized in different ways, and you're going to keep adding to that toolbox as well. And that's something that also is to be recognized, is that change is happening within the very mechanisms of how we work within ourselves and how we work with ourselves. But you have to work with yourself in order to realize how to properly work with yourself. And I know that may be confusing, but that's just how it is. A lot of it is the self-work that we have within ourselves, but you have to recognize that you have the tools to do that. Now, these controllable changes, these things that you change just to change, maybe you change your job, maybe you change your hair, maybe you change, where you're living or whatever that may be. These changes are something that are exciting. They're new and they can be scary, of course, and they can be uncertain. But one certainty is that, no matter what, something will change. So you're taking control of that change now, because are you going to let, just life change you? Or are you going to recognize that change is happening in life and make those changes? It's kind of be one step ahead of life. Make those changes before it tries to make it change you. I'm not even sure if I said that correctly, but you get the idea of what I'm saying. As we accept change, we can take these different opportunities and start controlling the change that we want to see within ourselves. Create different plans that you want for yourself, as far as just things you want to achieve. And the things that may be obstacles along the way, the things that may be challenges along the way, because again, you're recognizing that change is part of it. And that means change in the very goals that we have. Maybe we're setting on this path, and recognizing that change is part of that, part of that journey. Then recognize all the different avenues in which that journey may lead you to get to that goal. Because the way that you're thinking it may not happen, because again, life has changes, these changes that kind of pop into our lives that, kind of interrupt our plans. So recognize the things that you want to achieve and the different obstacles that may come along the way. Because if those obstacles do pop up, then you're like, well, this was a possibility. This was something that I knew and I saw was a possibility of what can happen. And what did I prepare? What did I plan within myself? What tools in my toolbox am I prepared to use in the situation? Because, I realized that this was something that was a possibility. When we have the recognition and the realization and the acceptance that change is happening within our lives, we truly hold the key to the power of, changing the things that we want for ourselves. But the more we resist it, the more it's something that's going to basically be like constantly being banged and banged up against those rocks and not really realizing that you have control over that situation. But the control comes from the recognition. So again, as we go through life, accept change and realize that it's something that builds resilience within ourselves. Those painful times, those challenging situations, those situations that have shifted dramatically and made us have to think in a different way, those things are building your resilience. They're allowing you to gain different tools and gain different knowledges, realize different strengths within yourselves. That's going to help you to move forward. That's going to help you to move to that next level of just whatever it is that you're trying to achieve in your life. There was an episode about feeling stuck in our lives, feeling as though there's just like a stagnant point in our lives. That's happening because we're not accepting change. In whatever way that may be, we're not accepting change. Change is something that keeps us unstuck. It keeps something new happening, It's like how can we be stuck if there's constantly something new happening? The moments that we get stuck, we're getting stuck again, like on these past situations. We're getting stuck, thinking about these things that are not now. And that's what's happening oftentimes, that we get stuck. We get stuck because we're thinking about things that aren't now, or we're feeling as though the situation that we're in is constant. Either way, we're not recognizing change. So get unstuck by realizing change and moving towards change. The sky is truly the limit as we start to think about the immense opportunities that change provides. I mean, like even athletes, like the fastest runner in 1980 didn't run at the same speed as the fastest runner today. That bar keeps getting set higher and higher. Same thing with any professional athlete. No matter what, that bar keeps getting set higher and higher. As we realize the potential of where we can be and recognize that change is only going to move us forward, then, the sky is truly the limit. Because once you reach that place of just like what you thought was excellence, there's another bar that's being set. It's like there's no true endpoint when it comes to like the greatness that we can achieve. And that's something that's kind of the biggest thing about this idea of change, is that it can really bring us so much greatness. It can bring greatness within ourselves and just within our lives as a whole. And there was a quote that I really love, and I think that it gets at this idea of just so many things that many of us may even be able to relate to. And it's kind of like one of those hard pill to swallow type of things. But even as I read this, I realized things within my life that maybe I was keeping myself from being great in because I was being good in, And this is the quote: "Good is the enemy of great, and that is one of the key reasons why we have so little that becomes great. We don't have great schools, principally because we have good schools. We don't have great government, principally because we have good government. Few people attain great lives, in large part because it's just so easy to settle for a good life." And that's Jim Collins who said that. And I think that's something that's so good. I think that's something that's so true towards just how we live our lives. Sometimes people think that something is just good enough, and that allows us to settle. It keeps us just in this state of being just there. And of course, there's a lot of resistance to change because some people just feel as though they're happy already. But, happiness isn't something that's constant. It's changing as well. So as we move through our lives, although there may be something that brings you happiness in this moment, again, that's not something that's going to last forever. And if you are happy in your life, then things are changing in your life, you know? New opportunities are coming to your life, new relationships, new things, new adventures, whatever that may be. If your life has happiness within it and you're feeling as though like that is something that is within your life, then those things are being accompanied by change. Because the same happiness that you were brought 5 years ago isn't the same thing that brings you happiness today. And maybe if it does, then it's on a different level. Maybe it's in a different way. Maybe it's to a stronger degree. I don't know, whatever it may be, it's changed. And as we continue to accept change, those things will continue to come into our lives. But if we continue to reject change, then we're going to find ourselves settling more and more for just these things that are good enough. And of course, life just, wouldn't be as interesting without change either. I think that there's so much to life that is truly amazing or can be such an amazing experience, but these experiences come out of change. And if you think about like, maybe your favorite movies or your favorite shows or whatever that may be, the characters that are within those shows, within those movies, they experience change. There's something that happens within their life, some kind of adventure or journey that they're going through that captivates us, that kind of keeps us kind of rooting for them and their journey and whatever that may be. But there are changes that are happening throughout that entire movie or that show. Otherwise, you wouldn't be interested. It would just be the same thing over and over. But changes are happening, and it's something that we value inherently. And as we can see the very interest that we have within ourselves, we accept that and we acknowledge that. So it's more of just us accepting it fully within ourselves and recognizing the power that we have once we do fully accept it. So that's kind of all I have for this idea of change. I think that's something that, it's part of us, it's part of life. And the longer we refuse to acknowledge that, we will continue to have this fear of change. We will continue to fear moving forward or changing the things within our lives, not realizing that we may be passing up on amazing opportunities and amazing ways of realizing parts of ourselves that maybe we would have never realized before. So, again, that's all I got. If you want to send any ideas or thoughts or anything like that to me, you can send them to everything.sunpodcast@gmail.com. You can join the Instagram page at everything.sunpodcast, or you can join the Twitter page at everysunpodcast, or you can join the Facebook group at Everything Under the Sun with Ty. So yeah, that's all I got. Take care of yourselves. Check in with yourselves. I love you all, and I will see you next time.